Hi, this video is about the Personal Macro Workbook. It will show you how to store your macros so that they are available to you in future, and also just to create a little pop-up menu on Excel that will allow you easy access to those macros so that you actually use them. There's nothing worse than having a heap of macros, you can't remember where you put them, and you end up just not using them and just redoing things over and over again, not getting the practice with your pieces of code. So what is the Personal Macro Workbook? It is a file that lives on your computer and opens every time you open Excel. It is created the first time you try to record a macro. We record a macro and we are given the option to store that macro in the workbook we are in or in the Personal Macro Workbook. If we don't have one, at this point, one will be created for us. It is stored somewhere within Windows itself, and we can track that down later if we want to. It is a hidden file, although we can unhide it in Excel so that we can see it if we want to, but generally there's no need. And as long as we are using this computer, that macro workbook will open when we open Excel. And if we know where to find it, we can take a copy of it and move it to a new computer if we need to. My macro workbook, I think I started in about 2001, something like that. Some of the macros that I use almost on a daily basis, I have been using regularly for the best part of 20 years. And I make those macros available to me via this pop-up menu, which you will see in my other videos. We've covered a few of these. We'll be covering more in future. Things from testing calculation speeds, version control, so I don't mix up my file naming conventions, flipping my data top to bottom, creating random data, auditing features, finding errors in the file. There's a heap of them in there. For this example, I've this file creates a small pop-up menu which has a couple of short menus with a couple of bits of test code. So here I've called it Gatcom Analytics after this business. We've got a couple of options here. If I hit this button, I simply run a test macro just to prove to me that it's running. Test macro 1 is running now, and test macro 5 is running now. Brilliant. So let's go and have a look at this piece of code. I have a piece of code to add a custom menu. That's how the menu appears in the first place. I have another piece of code to remove the custom menu. If I didn't do this, then every time I opened Excel, the menu would appear and never be removed again. I'd end up with heaps and heaps and heaps of the same thing. So I set triggers to remove it when required. And I have a couple of subroutines, one called add menu and one called add menu control. The difference in this case being this is a menu and this is a menu control. Most of this code we simply don't need to worry about. First of all, I remove any instance of the menu that already exists. This allows me to quickly reset the menu and, as I've said, make sure that it doesn't get duplicated. I have a couple of variables that control. I think these relate to Excel 2003. They make sure that the menu appears right before the help menu. I don't think I've ever updated it since writing this code in Excel 2003. So it's useful that it still works now in Excel 2019 or 365. So the first thing I need to do is create the initial main menu, which has got the name Gatcom Analytics. It's assigned to this constant string, get command analytics. This is the actual main menu there. I then add menu 1 with tests 1 and 2. Menu 1, test run 1 and 2. Menu 2. And a menu control with no specific menu. So this is the one at the bottom, test 5. You don't really need to worry about how each of these menu and menu control works. This piece of code does it. The code was created a long time ago, and I've never needed to worry about it since. Fairly straightforward. The point is that if you want to recreate this, all you need to do is add a piece of code like this to set the first level menu, and then as many of these as you want to set the second level menus. This bit is a caption that appears on that menu, and this bit must be spelt correctly. This is the action taken when somebody clicks on that control. So test 1 relates specifically to the name of my test macro here. If I spell that wrong, the macro can't be found, it will create an error. I will make a copy of this file available for a free download. So if you want to use this approach in a Personal Macro Workbook, you can get hold of a copy of it and simply change these menus as much as you want. But none of this code makes the actual menu appear automatically. So we have two events that we run. Events are triggers that happen automatically. The first one, workbook open. This piece of code runs when we open the workbook. And as you've probably guessed, workbook before close runs automatically before we close the workbook. Now these automatic triggers are one of the reasons why macros in workbooks can be dangerous. If you don't know where a file has come from, you shouldn't just let macros run automatically, because these things can run before you've had the chance to inspect the file and have a look around it. So you should always make sure you inspect your file before you enable macros. We'll do a video another time about spreadsheet security. So we have these two triggers to run the menu, to create the menu, and a normal code module to create the menu itself and assign the text to it. And that is pretty much everything you need to know. Your Personal Macro Workbook, you add more code modules as and when you want to, and save any useful snippets of code you've got. And once they've got a name, add them to a menu if you so desire. And eventually you will have a Personal Macro Workbook with its own menu for all the different things that you've decided to keep over the years that you thought were useful. Okay, good luck with it, and thanks for watching.